It's good, people. Back at you with another episode of Gen Sports Corner. I'm going to keep this real brief. This is my prediction for the Errol Spence and Tszyu fight going on in Australia tonight. Or I guess it'll be July 26, 2026 in their time zone. And this is a crossroads fight for both guys. And you have Tszyu. He had the loss to Fundora in the first fight when he had the cut on the middle of his forehead. Then he had a loss to Bakram. And then he had another loss to Fundora in the rematch. I think he got stopped in the first or second round. That was a more definitive end to the second fight. So he's had some victories since then, but this is a crossroads fight for him in his career. And then Errol Spence, obviously, coming off the loss to Terence Crawford 3 years ago, July 2023. This is his first fight back since that loss. And you know how the big fish operates. No tune-up fights. He don't believe in that. He said, I just want to fight a dog. So he was supposed to fight Fundora. That didn't happen for whatever reason. So he said, you know what? I want to fight Tszyu. And Tszyu, despite the losses, he's still a live opponent in terms of his offense. So this is not a walk in the park by any means. But let's go ahead and get into the fight. I think this is a simple, straight up and down analysis, in addition to it being nebulous in terms of all the factors that go into this fight and how I think it's going to play out. It's almost impossible to predict how this fight's going to play out, because you have one guy in Tszyu who you don't know if he has the punch resistance anymore. He's had two bad stoppages, one with Fundora in the second fight, and then one against Bakram where he got stopped in brutal fashion. And those are the type of fights that take a little bit out of you. And we don't know if he's going to be gun shy when he starts getting hit. And then you look at Errol Spence. From my vantage point, this matchup is pretty simple. I think Errol Spence is the better fighter. I think at their best, Tszyu is not the same level of fighter as an Errol Spence. However, we haven't seen Errol Spence fight in 3 years. And I don't care how good of a fighter you are, that long of a layoff, you have to factor it in. I've been skeptical of fighters and how they're going to be even after a 1 year layoff, let alone 3 years. We just don't know what type of Errol Spence we're going to get. Are we going to get 80% of what he was before? We're going to get 100% of what he was before? We're going to get 50% of what he was before? We don't know that. Sparring is cool. Throwing shots on the mitts is cool. Hitting the heavy bag, moving around, using your footwork is cool. But it's a whole different animal when you're in the ring with somebody who is going to be unpredictable to a certain extent and they're trying to take your head off. That's when you really find out where you're at. So my simple assessment is, if Errol Spence is any version of what he was before, even if it's 80% of the fighter he was when he was fighting the Danny Garcias and the Mikey Garcias and your Dennis Ugases of the world, not necessarily the fighter that went into the Terence Crawford fight, because regardless of where you want to place blame at, it was pretty clear he was not prepared the way he should have been for that fight. Part of that's on him. Part of that is on Derek James. They both played a role in that. But I think with any proper preparation, especially with his new trainer, I lose track of the names sometimes. He's a well-renowned trainer in boxing. Ronnie Shields, excuse me. With Ronnie Shields, maybe he gets back more towards the Olympic-style Errol Spence that we saw before. But if he's any version of what he was before, just a fraction of that, I still think he's a better fighter than Tszyu. The question is going to be, where is he at after 3 years? We don't know. So I'm going to give the slight edge to Errol Spence just because I think he's a better fighter at his zenith than Tszyu was at his zenith. But I make this pick with very, very little confidence because we just don't know where he's going to be at 3 years removed from his last fight. So I'm going to go with Errol Spence in this fight because I think he has a better jab. I think he has better head movement. Tszyu does not like moving his head off the line. He'll throw them punches, and if you stay on the end of his punches and he catches you, it's a problem. But if you're able to establish a jab against Tszyu, he does not move his head off the center line, whether he's on defense or whether he's on offense, and his feet are stuck in cement. Errol Spence is not the fleetest of foot either, but I think that's a wash in terms of their foot speed. I'd give a slight edge to Errol Spence even now, but it's really Tszyu's defense and his punch resistance and some of the tough losses he's had over the past few years that give me more pause when it comes to picking him to win this fight than it does for Errol Spence. Despite Errol Spence having a 3-year layoff, in my opinion, I'm still sketchy about the punishment that Tszyu's taken over the last few, let's say 5 fights. And once he starts getting punches landed on him by Errol Spence, is he going to be able to hold up? We do have to question if Errol Spence is able to hold up at 160 because we haven't seen him fight there yet. However, in my opinion, Errol Spence should have been fighting at 154 or 160 anyway because he's just a bigger guy. And he was struggling to make weight at 147. This is something I mentioned in my pre-fight analysis for the Crawford fight. I said both of them looked like they were weight drained, Crawford and Spence. So to me, it's not a surprise he's fighting at this weight, and I think he'll actually do better at this weight. The question is, how is he going to react or respond once he starts catching some of Tim's punches? We have that question about both fighters. I just think that Errol Spence has more tools in the shed, and he should win this fight. But as Tim Bradley was alluding to in his video, don't let me down, man. You have all the tools to win this fight. You're the more skilled and accomplished fighter. But you're going against a guy who all it takes is one punch from him to be able to change the complexion of the fight. So we will see. But I'm picking Errol very tentatively to win this fight. And hopefully he comes back and gets his reestablishes himself in the boxing ring and gets to win, and then he can decide what he wants to do moving forward, if he wants to have another fight after that. Because like he said, he's on a fight-by-fight basis at this point. So let me know what y'all think about that and who you have winning this fight tonight. But let's go ahead to the undercard real quick because 2 of the fights that were supposed to happen, they're off. Charlo can't get into Australia. Something about his criminal history. I don't know of any felonies, to my knowledge, that he has, but I know he had a DWI, or at least he has, either he got a DUI or he had to go to court or has to go to court regarding a DUI he's had at some point. And maybe it's things like that as to why they're not letting him in the country. I don't know, but the fight is off for him, so that's one fight that was supposed to be on the card that's not there. And then you have a second fight that's supposed to be on the card that's off now. So this whole card is getting messed up because Stephen Coolboy Fulton was supposed to be fighting in Australia at the 130-pound weight limit. Not only did he request to have it changed to 133, but when it came time to weigh in last night, this dude weighed in 6.5 pounds overweight. You requested to have the weight limit increased, and then you still missed the weight limit that you asked for by 6.5 pounds. He came in at 139.5 pounds. Like, this is the second time he's missed weight egregiously. And you have to wonder, is this the end for Stephen Coolboy Fulton? Because this ain't good. This ain't a good look. It's completely unprofessional. It just seems as though maybe it's a discipline issue. Maybe his mind and his spirit are not in the sport anymore. But once you start seeing guys miss weight like this consistently, no good. And he really didn't have a good answer in the press conference. I think it might have been Thursday night. They asked him, like, hey, you asked for the weight to be increased, the weight limit to be increased, or you having problems making weight. You know how people are going to speculate. And he didn't really have a straightforward answer. He answered it as straightforward as he could, but he was dancing around the question a little bit. And then that comes out. So very disappointed to see that because I'm a fan of Coolboy Fulton. He had the loss against Inoue. He lost against an all-time great, even though he himself was a top 10 pound-for-pound fighter at that moment in time. And I would have loved to see him come back and string together some wins, but this ain't the way to do it. If he keeps this up, he'll be out of the sport before you know it. So let me know what y'all think about that. But I was very disappointed, and I'm considering whether I'm going to buy this fight because, listen, obviously I'm here to see what's going to happen between Spence and Tszyu, but I want to see good undercards. And if the whole undercard is jacked up, then it's not a good look for the fight card. I'm gonna put it like that. So let me know what y'all think of Cool Boy not making weight, and then what you think about Spence and Tszyu and who you're gonna have winning that fight. I'm gonna pick Spence, but man, I'm shaky on this one. Like a lot of other people that are picking this. You know, I was looking at videos with Sean Porter and Tim Bradley. I know Terrence Crawford picked Spence to win. I know some others are picking Spence to win. Some pick Tszyu. So it's pretty split because both of these guys are an enigma at this point in their career. The only reason it's difficult is because of the layoff. If not for the layoff, I would pick Spence pretty easily, but we'll see. Let me know what you think and talk to y'all after the fights. Peace.